Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for night 3 of UWSU Question Time Live. My name is Dr. Alex Harden. I'm joining you from the University of Surrey Students' Union, where I'm currently the Digital Experience Manager, and I've had the privilege of being a full-time officer myself for 2 years. So I am so excited to be with you again to hear from your president candidates tonight. Now, a students' union is an incredibly special place for anyone to work. If you think about all the aspects of student life, there's very little actually that your students' union isn't involved with, whether that's your academic representation, sports clubs and societies, advice, well-being support. A students' union has to cover it all. And at the very, very top of that, you have the president leading the strategy for the organisation and managing the team of 5 full-time officers at UWSU. It's an incredible role, and they will be working up and down the full breadth of the university, sitting on the Court of Governors, to whom even the Vice-Chancellor is accountable, as well as regular meetings with senior management, representing all students at the university on the issues that you want to see. And if that wasn't enough, they will be chairing the Board of Trustees, ensuring the sustainable operation of the entire organisation at the Students' Union. So the successful candidate is going to have quite the task ahead of them, and it's incredible to be able to hear from them tonight. Now, if you weren't able to join us yet this week, you can head on over to uwsu.com/elections, where you can find out all about the elections process, as well as catch up on anything that you may have missed so far from the other discussions. The way that it's going to work is each president candidate will be invited to join me for about 10 minutes each, where they will all answer the same first question, which we've given them in advance to prepare. And after that, they'll have around 30 seconds or so for a number of follow-up questions which you have asked at the university over the course of the last week or so. There'll also be questions from the audience, and so please do join the conversation. All you need to do is leave your comments on either Facebook or YouTube. We'll be monitoring both, and we will fit in as many of your questions for each candidate as we have time for. Before we start, I would just like to wish all of the candidates good luck. It's, as I've said, it's a big responsibility being president, and in this year more than ever, it's a very brave thing to put themselves forward, and they do deserve recognition for that. So I hope you'll join me in wishing them all the best for the next hour and a half ahead. But for now, it's my very great pleasure to introduce our first candidate, who is Adriel.
Hi there.
Adriel, hi, thank you so much for joining me. So as I explained, all candidates have been given the first question to prepare in advance. So could you please introduce yourself and tell everyone what your #1 priority for students at Westminster next year would be?
Okay, so hi there. I'm Adriel Dass. I'm in my second year doing biological sciences. And what I think is the best thing to do is to listen to everyone, because you can't be a good leader if you a bad listener. Because say for example, if I get chosen or if anyone else gets chosen, there will be stuff that the students they'll have problems that they will speak to the president. And if they're not a good listener, then none of the problems will be fixed. So a good listener is very good.
Great, thanks, Adriel. And I know that you've also applied for the role of VP Activities. So are you fully committed to the role of president?
Yes, I am. I applied for both roles because I think they have very good traits, both of them, but they're both very different at the same time. So it's not saying that one is better than the other. I think they're both very good, but they both have they both have different good points.
Okay, and what is it about the role of president that really excites you?
I think it really excites me because I believe that this might sound a little bit cocky, but I believe I'm a natural born leader. Um, Not in a bad way. I feel like I can help people, and I feel that people will find it easy to talk to me, and I can just help them. They can help me, and as I said before, I'm a good listener.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Right, so let's talk about your manifesto for a moment. And you've mentioned that you can make a change toward the university in a positive way. So I was wondering, could you explain for all of us what do you think are the negative aspects of university at the moment that you would like to address, and how?
Um, I don't think there's any negative points about the uni. I feel like it's a very positive place and a safe place to be around. But I feel like the skills that I have will just make it an even better place than it already is. But I'm not trying to disgrace anyone at the uni or any of the university. I think it's an amazing place.
Okay, and what do you think are your priority areas? You've mentioned about wanting to be accessible and approachable and get lots of feedback from students, but what else are these sort of priority areas for you to make the university a more positive place?
I think the best points that I can say is maybe being commitful, because if this is a very big role and people are relying on you to make the university a better place, and if you don't have commitment, then you won't be able to do anything or any tasks. I think courage is a good thing as well because, like you said before, we're very brave, and every older candidates are very brave to do this. And the last point I would say is compassion, because I feel like it might sound a little bit cheesy, but love makes the world go round. So obviously, you have to help others to help other people.
Okay, thank you, Adriel. That's a very nice sentiment to air, especially in the first discussion. So, um, picking up on what you've said, at Westminster, I understand that you're quite fortunate to have quite a solid working relationship with university colleagues. The Vice Chancellor, if I've understood correctly, is fairly new in post, but works quite collaboratively with the Students' Union. But there will be times as president where you disagree with the direction.
Hello, you cut out. Hi there.
Hi, and we're back. Thank you for bearing with me, Adriel. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened. Um, the question that I was trying to get to is there will be times where you completely disagree with the direction of the university for whatever reason. You've said that it's a very positive place. You don't want to take away from that, of course. But how would you handle conflict with senior leaders at the university? How would you go into that discussion?
Obviously, it's a very sensitive topic because you don't want to like disrespect anyone or like hurt anyone's feelings. But I feel like we're all there to make the university a better place. So if I give my point and it's different to someone else's point, I feel like there'll be a chance where we both see eye to eye because we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it to help other people. So I think we'll work together to make it a better place.
Okay, well, in that case, let's think about something concrete. Let's talk about tuition fees. Um, do you think that students deserve a refund for their tuition fees this year?
I don't think that they should get a full refund because we are still learning, and the uni hasn't completely stopped. We are still having our lessons and everything, coursework still going through. But I feel like we can't use the full resources from the university. For example, the library. We can do it online,
Mhm.
but I feel like sometimes it's better to read a book in front of you, and it's better to have all. So maybe not a full refund, maybe a little bit, maybe discounted, but definitely not a full refund because the university is still running and there's everything's going on well so far.
Okay, and in that case, I use this as an example because it's very likely that the university would be at least resistant to giving fee funds across the board. So let's say you're in a discussion with the Vice Chancellor and you raise this on behalf of students that because of COVID, you're not getting the full value for money and that students want a refund. And the Vice Chancellor disagrees and says there's no money. What would you do then?
Um, Obviously, I would ask students what they want first. That'll be the first thing I ask because, like I said, you have to be a good listener. You have to listen to what the students want, and if enough students would like it, then I would bring it up. But if they did disagree, then it would be hard, a hard decision to make. But I feel like their decision would be good because they know what they're doing.
Okay, lovely. Let's take a couple of questions from the audience that have come in. So someone has asked, I think on Facebook, how would you set about tackling the attainment gap? And for anyone at home, the attainment gap refers to the different proportions of students who get a 2-1 or a first, normally based on ethnicity. So across the UK, for instance, it's often the case that different sections of the student community will perform better than the others. So, Adriel, how would you tackle the attainment gap at Westminster?
Um, I don't believe that. Well, I feel like racism is very bad. Firstly, um, just because of someone's ethnicity, they shouldn't be. I don't know how to say the right word, but they shouldn't be targeted for anything. Just because they're from one country doesn't mean that they can't get a better grade, or if they got a better grade. I think equality is a very big thing. So if someone has it, they should look at all the traits that they have, not just because they're from a certain area.
Okay, thank you. And another question that we've had from the audience, you said that there would be, a tiny chance for you to see eye to eye. What if you did disagree with something that a fellow officer was putting forward? Say for instance, you and a member of your team completely disagree on whether to do a specific campaign. What would you do then? How would you handle that with your team?
Firstly, I would have a conversation with the person that disagrees with me, just so I can see their points, they can see my points, and the main thing is working together to help the university. So if they disagree with me and I disagree, I'll try to find a way that we can work together.
Okay, lovely. In that case, Adriel, that's all of the questions that I had prepared for you. But before we go, this is your chance to tell the voters at home anything that we may have missed, and in particular, why should students vote for you to be the next UWSU president?
Okay, so obviously I'm running for president. I feel like we're in a very hard time right now because everyone's in lockdown and they're not getting the full resources. And if you just want to talk, I'm here to listen. My email is adrieldass@outlook.com. It doesn't have to do with any of the candidacy going. If you just want a conversation, a Zoom conversation, I'm here to help. And anything you need, I'll try my best.
Okay, in that case, Adriel, thank you for your time today and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Next up, we're going to have Ice White, again, a candidate for the position of president here at UWSU. Ice, thank you so much for joining me. And once again, we'll start with the pre-prepared question if we could. So please do introduce yourself and just explain to everyone what your priority would be next year as president, please.
Well, I think the priority is the same for a lot of people. I want to deal with the big tuition fees question. And to deal with that, we need a big response for it as well. So it is a pretty complex situation. People have their own circumstances. Personally, I got a baby at home. I have moved house 8 times since the beginning of 2020. So everyone has their own stuff going on at home. Maybe their Wi-Fi is not good enough. And the lectures have been amazing. It's not anyone's fault. It's just that we need to find a solution when there's a problem. And there is a problem. So we have to at least look into it and proceed with some action.
Okay, thank you. Now, you picked up tuition fees, and I'd like to start, if we could, by talking about money. So, would you mind explaining to me what's your understanding of the union's current sort of financial health, just broadly speaking?
Well, in the 2000s, I believe, the tuition fees of this country changed. They actually went to £3,000, eventually to £9,000. Now it's something like 9,250. So we should take a little look back and see how did we manage then and what has changed now. So we need to think about how can we solve this problem And speaking of finance, I know the university has to pay staff members and rent, which is really expensive. 4 campuses, 3 of those in the very heart of London. So it's a complicated subject, but surely there is a way, and we can find that out somehow.
And it certainly is. So for anyone at home watching, as I mentioned, the president is going to be chairing the board of trustees and responsible for the ongoing financial sustainability of the union as an organisation. What typically we find is that most of the union's income comes from the university in the terms of a grant that is given each year. And in and amongst COVID, there are financial challenges ahead, of course. So ICE, if you're president and leading the trustees for the union as a charity, let's say that you had to make cuts. How would you go about making a significant cut to the union's budget?
So we would have to, first things first, we'd have to look at what the budget consists of, what it's being used for, and then work out the necessary things and take away the obvious things that may not be so necessary. However, since the university has been closed for a while, you could probably imagine that some money has been saved. For example, well, there could be many things, but maybe rent has continued as you could expect, but there are some things that probably the university has saved money on in the first place, and probably the student union as well. So, of course, we're not aware of the situation of the finances right now, but if we take a look at the budget, if we make cuts, we need to make sensible cuts.
Okay, let's move on then. I want to talk about your manifesto, and you've already mentioned sort of improvements to campuses at Westminster. Could you walk us through what needs for improvement you've identified for each campus individually?
Okay, so I personally go to Regent Street campus, so I'm more familiar with the areas around central London, but I have been to all 4 campuses in my time studying. One of the things I want to introduce is sleeping pods. It's not even that much money. You don't need many of them. If we allow 20 to 30 minutes per person per day, then you can easily squeeze 10 people in just a few hours per chair, and you wouldn't even need many chairs. And this is, I have worked at Google for a few years. We see this at Google and other companies. It's proven to improve productivity, and it's even good for your mental state. It's great for when you need a rest from the hustle and bustle when you're doing essays, and it's good for your cardiovascular health as well. Other things would include, another thing I mentioned, perhaps a scheme where when we come in, we can get a free snack per day that we're studying. Just that little thing that can make a little boost in how we're going, because I would have to travel all the way to university. I imagine people have much longer routes to commute from because we're not living near the campus necessarily. So just that little boost can make a lot of difference in one person's day.
Okay, and I know that you've also applied for the role of VP Activities. So why is it that you've applied to both roles, and have you got a favorite between the two?
For me, this is one campaign, not 2 campaigns. If you look at my manifesto, it can be fulfilled by both roles. So I applied for both because I care about fulfilling my promises. And if I didn't care, I wouldn't apply for any of them. The reason I applied for both is because I just want to fulfill this manifesto, and that's what I care about. I can fulfill that as president. I can fulfill that as vice president for activities, and my identity is very focused around leadership, and I used to be a president of the Public Speaking Society myself. Anyway, so I identify with both roles.
Okay, in that case, let's talk about leadership, because as we've explained at the start, the president will be managing the team of 5 full-time officers at the union. So how would you go about leading the officer team?
Well, to lead a team, you have to lead the team and not boss the team. So you shouldn't really be dictating. You should be working as a team and focus on that. And when lockdown ends and when we're getting started, we will all be excited to meet each other finally, work together, and get things done. And I hope there will be no problems. If there are any problems, then I'm a very understanding person. And instead of dictating things, we just have gentle discussions and resolve things.
Okay, thank you. And we'd like to move on to a couple of audience questions that we've had come in. You've talked about your plans for campuses with nap pods and free snacks, and obviously these are going to cost a fair amount of money by the time it sort of covers the whole university's worth of students. So do you think that money should be spent on free snacks over areas such as free workspace? With many students studying practical courses, they have to pay over £1,000 for materials on their course. And so is that really where the money should be spent?
Well, the libraries are great. The other resources are great. To actually buy a sleeping pod, it's a one-off purchase. There's no renting fee. You don't have to buy it all over again. And they're not that expensive in the first place. And as I said previously, I could imagine perhaps the university saved some money because of the pandemic. We don't know yet, but that's a possibility. And either way, it's not that much money and you don't need many of them to start with. An alternative could be, even if this fails, we can find some kind of alternative where you can take a rest quietly. But that would have to be a backup plan. But I want to get this done, of course. It's a manifesto.
And for instance, the students watching at home who have to pay additional sort of hidden fees as part of their course for materials and so forth, how would you tell them that nap pods are a better investment than paying for those materials that students are currently having to shell out?
Well, would you be referring to when you start a course and you're buying books? Because some people do that. Personally, I always relied on the libraries and things like Google Scholar as well. I don't think we should really have people pay for this, but what I mean is that we should be able to afford it out of our tuition fees, because that's what we're paying for the university anyway. Plus, it's not that expensive. We have the rooms. We just need 1 or 2 chairs per campus, and that can help a lot of people.
Okay, in that case, let's move on from nap pods. And my last question for you, are there any areas of work that the union currently does that you think it should stop? Obviously, year on year, officers come in with fresh new ideas and you know, they want to bring in new things, better things, as well as all of the pre-existing stuff. So what would you stop that the union is currently doing in order to achieve your own manifesto?
Well, could I ever stop them being so awesome? I don't think so. There's nothing I have seen where I have said I don't like that. My manifesto looks at improving things, but not putting an end to things. I'm not the kind of person that ends something unless it's really bad, but there's nothing that shocks you. There's a lot of good stuff that's going on. I want to improve mental health. I want to improve the job board and the websites. But I don't want to stop anything.
Okay, and in that case, Ice, for everyone at home, is there anything else you'd like to say about why they should vote you for the next UWSU president?
Okay, if you care about nap pods, if you care about mental health, personally, I have less close friends from depression and mental health. It's very personal to me. If you care about improving the job board, I think the Westminster Employability Award is amazing, so we can do more stuff like that. Then give me a vote, give me a shot. I'm running for president and vice president for activities. You can vote for multiple people anyway. So give this a shot and let's see what we can do.
Okay, Ice, thank you so much for joining me and good luck with the rest of the campaign. Catch you later. Right, we're going to move straight on now to our next candidate. So I'm hoping that in the background we have Kawthar Hussain ready to join me.
Hiya.
Hi, thank you for joining us. So all the candidates have had the same first question. Could you please explain to us, well, introduce yourself and explain to us what your #1 priority for the year ahead would be as president of UWSU?
All right. Well, my name is Kawthar Hussain, and I'm in my first year studying business management and entrepreneurship. And my main goal to be president is to improve what the university has already provided for the students, but also bring in some new change. I feel like sometimes when you are constantly surrounded by the same things over and over again, year in and year out, you tend to get demotivated and bored. And so sometimes seeing new things and having new things available in front of you that are going to change your mental health, are going to change your years in uni, would be something to look forward to when you're coming into uni.
Lovely, thank you, Kawthar. So on your manifesto, you mentioned that more can be achieved as president of the SU. What's not currently being achieved that you would bring to the role?
Personally, I think, for example, with what the student union has already got for like mental health. Mental health is such a huge topic, especially within the last year of COVID-19 and so many people, you know, losing family members or losing friends, losing cousins. It's really taken a toll on people. Staying at home, being indoors, being told you're not allowed to go outside has taken a toll on thousands of people, not just university students. And adding university on top of that can be extremely hard. So I feel like you can provide, if I were to be president, I'd provide a lot more, and I'd focus mainly on mental health, because I feel like your mental health literally not dictates, but it reflects what you're doing in your day-to-day life and how you choose what you want to do and the goals you want to achieve and what you want to work on. And especially doing a degree, whether 4 years or 3 years, you need your mental health to be in the highest of places so you can actually achieve that degree.
Okay, and knowing that you're a first year, I'm quite keen to know from you. How do you think the Students' Union has sort of communicated everything that it does do to first years this year? I mean, obviously there can't be the same level of in-person promotion. So how have they done in terms of getting to know any new starters this year online only?
Well, I mean, having my first year online anyways was completely different than what I expected. So for me, not having that social interaction with them, they're constantly sending emails, you know, you have the website always being updated with so many new things, so many different opportunities, things that are happening around. I think even if I sort of felt as if I was already there in a social interaction, even though everything was just through a computer screen. So I think they've done really well so far, and they're definitely like going to keep going at it. You can tell there's like a lot of hard work going behind the scenes because they're trying to get in touch with so many people, even from different countries, just through an online virtual space. So I can imagine it will be very, very difficult, but they're doing a pretty good job.
Well, picking up from that point around the difficulty, obviously it will be more challenging without being able to communicate face to face to students. So going forwards, how would you make sure that the current first years who will be going into their second years next year, how will you make sure that they understand just how relevant the Students' Union is to their entire student university life?
Well, okay, for example, if we pick apart our university, you have so many different cultures, so many different diversities, so many international students as well. The student union, it's not just for the people in the university. It also somewhat impacts their life. I'm pretty sure if you were to go to university without a student union, you wouldn't get the opportunities that you get now. University would be quite difficult, and I'm not quite sure many people would be able to get through as much as they've already gotten through. So especially because having our first year online and not having that proper social interaction with student union, I think if we provide them with a reason as to why their second year would be as better as their first year, even though it hopefully it would be in uni and not online as well, then I think many students would be more keen to supporting the student union and listening to what they have to say and seeing how their ideas or their opinions could actually be a part of the university as well.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And thinking about the role as president, I've said in the introduction, the president will be sitting at the very peak of the university, and the successful candidate will be responsible for the running of the university. They will be a governor for the university, as well as being the lead student representative. And those come with very different challenges, because on the one hand, you need to represent students and champion the issues that students most care about. But on the other, you need to ensure the smooth operations of the university. You need to ensure the financial sustainability and so on. So how would you balance those two roles between the university governor on the one hand and president of the students' union on the other?
For me, I think the only way you can balance anything in life is to be organized. You can't want to take such a big role if you know yourself. You can't really balance, like, say, work life, home life, study life, anything you do part-time. I feel like with president, you certainly need to be open-minded and you need to be organized in the sense that even with so many different roles that you need to take care of and so many different things you need to oversee, if you have a set plan and a set goal and you have help with the other vice presidents and you can see what they're doing and you make sure, like, everybody has their own role to partake in, I think it is definitely doable. It's not easy, but it's definitely something that you can do if you put your mind to it and you focus on certain sections that need to be focused on and you prioritize certain things.
And what I'm quite keen to understand here is, imagine that students are telling you, there's this really critical issue for students at Westminster, but in your role as a governor for the university, you know that it's not in the long-term best interests of the university. How would you be able to hold key leadership figures to account whilst still being responsible in that sort of governor capacity?
I feel like whether short-term or long-term, if you disregard the short-term problems or disregard what you think may not be as significant, it surely is somewhat significant to the students if they have brought it up, if it's something critical for them, if it's affecting their university lifestyle at this point. I feel like you're going to have to make compromises. So as much as you want something to be really amazing in the long term and you plan for it and you make sure everything is like top notch, if you disregard the short term ones or put them aside simply because you're too focused on a long term goal, I feel like you'll lose your balance of, governing the university because you haven't really listened to what they need then and now. You've just sort of thought, okay, well, they've mentioned this and that can be doable over time. But the issues that they're facing with now, how can I help them, like, at this moment?
Okay. It's looking like we're running slightly over on time, so I've got just a couple of quick last questions for you, if I may. Firstly, what are your thoughts on the tuition fee campaign? And in a yes or a no answer, should students be refunded for the year?
Yes. Definitely.
Okay, and we've had this in from the audience, I think. As a first year, do you think that you're in the best position to be representing the full breadth of students at Westminster?
There are pros and cons to this. Some people may think not. For me personally, maybe because I haven't experienced so many years at university, it would be difficult, but that doesn't mean like I can't take on this role just because I'm a first year. Everybody learns things as they go along, and it's a huge opportunity to grow and mature and pick up so many different skills within my first years. And I think if I were to be president and in my last year of uni or my third year of uni, I may not be as passionate about it as I am now.
Okay, so energy from the start. In that case, that's all that we have time for. But before we go, is there anything that you'd like to say for everyone watching at home about why they should vote for you to be the next UWSU president?
Well, to begin with, it's if you want something to change, if you want something to change at uni, whether to do with your mental health, how you socialize with other people, what the university can provide. I'm really passionate and strong about if I want something to change, I'll do my best interest to make it change and make that change happen. And I believe if you want to work for something, you want to work towards a goal, you do it independently, but you also do it as a community. Nonetheless, I'm all for listening to everybody's opinions and taking into everyone's emotions. And so if you want something to change at Westminster, then please do vote for me.
Lovely. And with that, that's all we have time for. So thank you for joining me, Kawthar, and best of luck with the rest of the campaign. See you later. So if you're enjoying tonight, don't forget to head on over to uwsu.com/elections. Over there, the whole team have put together fantastic materials about everything that you may have missed so far this week, as well as all you need to make the most informed vote for next year as possible. Right now, though, we're going to continue with candidates for the role of president, and I'm delighted to ask Rahul to join me.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Rahul. Thanks for joining me. I'm doing great, thank you. It's fantastic to be here. We're going to start the same way for every candidate. So could you please introduce yourself to everyone and just explain to us what your #1 priority for next year would be as president?
Thank you so much, Alex. My name is Rahul Bamane. I'm an Indian and international student, and I'm a postgraduate studying journalism at Westminster. Without wasting ado, I think the first thing that I'm going to do is find Padamjeet and his entire team and sit down with them and talk to them and just ask them how the year has been, to sort of understand what a difficult year that they have challenged with, and to take a lot of feedback with them. Obviously, then we move on to, as a president, I think it's so difficult to choose one topic to pick on to. So while we're discussing fee reduction, while we're discussing culture, sports, welfare, education, we have to deal with all of them. But I think it's extremely important to look back at the year that has gone by and sort of learn from it and then move on ahead, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And in your manifesto, you mentioned you want to better the facilities and academic experience. So what do you think is the #1 academic issue for students at Westminster right now?
I'm going to be very honest. I think one of the major things we are not sort of doing is taking a world view or a world perspective. Most of my curriculum was, very restricted to sort of like in UK and the stories in the UK and things we're dealing with the UK. But I think we need to acknowledge the fact that we're coming from all over the world, and we sort of need to make sure that we understand what is happening out there in China, in Japan, India, Australia, America, all sorts of places. So this sort of westernization that has happened, I think we need to sort of break it down and make sure that we're all at sort of the same level.
Okay, thank you. And just going a little bit further into this, in order to decolonize the curriculum and to bring in more diverse representative voices, there are thousands of academics at the university which you're going to have to bring on side, and that's no small task for anyone. So how would you go about embedding this sort of quality of inclusion with the academic community at Westminster? How would you approach that?
Yes, of course. I think we're forgetting the fact that student union is not just 5 people. It's the students union. It's all the students together. So that includes the course reps, the reps that, the classes have, and we need to bring them all together. We also have to sort of speak to the staff members and realize that we need to have a diverse staff, people who are brown, people who are black, all sorts of people who come together, and then acknowledge and understand that we need to have people of color to teach people of color. You cannot have just a single color teaching people of color who come across from the entire world. So sort of connecting the dots, reaching out, having a network chain effect with the entire university, with students, and then sort of bringing it together to understand that, this is how we need to bring in education that is more diverse and inclusive in nature.
Okay, thank you. Now, also on your manifesto, you mentioned that you want to improve the welfare of students. So, what concerns you at the moment in relation to student welfare, and what would you do to address it?
Thank you for bringing that up, Alex. I think one of the major things is housing and the difficulty that you face with it. I think as a student who never flew or sat in a flight and never landed a different nation, for me, landing in London was such a big, sort of a thing. And then going out to my university, the halls, living there, flying back home to India, and dealing with the kind of relationship that we have, the difficulties we face as to the contracts that we have with the halls. So understanding that sort of can be flexible and easy, and we can have exceptional cases, and understand that it's been a difficult year and you need to change the way we function. And we cannot have, I think what we're also doing this year is a lot of email conversations. It's so superficial. I mean, now that I speak to you right here, I feel connected and I understand that this is the conversation. Imagine you and me talking on an email. How would that work out? Right? So I think that is what we need to really understand, to listen to them, to really talk to them, use our words. Housing is one of the major issues, like I mentioned. I think that's something that I should tackle first.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Now, I'd like to go back to what you were saying slightly earlier about inclusion, representation, diversity, these sorts of areas. And if we want to get more people of colour teaching students, then we first need to address the attainment gap. I.e. the differences in degree outcomes for different sections of the student community. So in your own words, would you mind explaining to me your understanding of the attainment gap at Westminster, please?
This is something that I have personally experienced, witnessed, and understood, that we're coming from different backgrounds, so our understanding and curriculums have been different. If I'm an Indian, I approach things differently. If I'm a Chinese, I approach things differently. So we need to sort of have this understanding that there's not a single line that we all need to cross. We all have different lines that we need to cross. And I think once we realize the fact that we're different, hence our goals are different and our reaches are different, we can easily understand that you cannot judge all the students on the basis of the single curriculum or a single understanding as a professor or as a teacher, for that matter of fact. So if you're Indian, you need to we as a person need to acknowledge where you come from, how your growing up upbringing has been, how your teaching has been, and that is how you need to approach. When more people with different curriculums come together, they obviously independently find jobs later, and then they'll be better people who can actually come back to the university and teach us, and then we'll have more people of color.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. So next up, I'd like to ask, how would you manage the relationship between the university and the Students' Union? Obviously, the Students' Union itself is its own independent charitable organisation that works to represent only the interests of students. So how are you going to manage the relationship with the university, particularly if you don't agree on something?
I think it's really, really easy to answer that. The easiest and the right thing to do is being honest. If I'm representing the students and there's something that I don't agree with the university, I really just have to be honest and talk about it. And I think nothing beats communication. So if I can stand there and tell them, hey, I think this is not working right well, and maybe I can choose to disagree with you, and we don't have to always imply my things. We can both come down to a consensus. So the end goal here, Alex, is to be a wonderful diplomat and to also choose the right thing. And it's a difficult thing to do, but why are we here for if it's not difficult?
Okay, lovely, thank you. I've got a couple of audience questions that have come in. So let's go back to the topic of housing, which you highlighted as this, #1 priority when it comes to student welfare. So you've mentioned about housing. Is your work focused on university accommodation? Because there's only a few students who live on site. Where are you planning to focus your attention?
True. I think I cannot just prioritize halls and the university living, because I've had people who approached me and asked me, what about private living? And that is something I dealt with. When I was sitting here in India, I couldn't find a house except for just the 3 apps that were displayed on the website, which was Zoopla, Spare Room, or something else, So sort of in a way, if we as a union can reach out to agents, collate a database of people who are actually providing housing, affordable housing for students, especially because students most of the time end up living together in houses as well. Sort of collecting a database of sorts and understanding that we as a system need to make sure that that database is verified and something that we can trust. Only then we can pass on to the students. Once we are able to collate that sort of a data, be it's surrounding Harrow or Marylebone or regions, then we can release it or provide it to the students who actually require it, and in a way that they can understand where affordable living is available. And this is something that the university and the union trusts. So we as students can also trust. So not just the halls, but also private living, and sort of starting with collecting a database.
Okay, thank you. And in that case, the last question that I have for you, again, submitted from the audience, reads, Rahul, how will you deal with how will you deal with and support students who want a refund of their tuition fee this year?
If you're asking me as a student, I would honestly just stand there and explain them the sort of trauma and tragedy that has happened. We're forgetting the fact that here we're not talking about students from the UK, we're talking about students from all over the world who are actually paying double the amount probably as compared to the UK students. So yeah, I think the smallest request as a president, as a student at the same time, I would be asking is, I'm not asking you to reduce like a £4,000 reduction from my fees. I'm asking you to do a minimal amount that you can, even if that's £500, even if that's £1,000. Here, the understanding here, Alex, is I don't think so. People really need the money. People really need an answer right now, and the answer obviously should end up with money. And that is, if they get even a little bit back, that is going to go a long way, because they're going to speak good about the university and tell them that, hey, our university actually paid back, and they did something that other universities wouldn't do. And that takes a lot, even if that costs us a lot in the long run. But I think that's a
Rahul, I think that's everything that we have time for, but thank you. Before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to say to everyone watching online about why they should vote you to be the next president?
Yes. I think you can vote anyone you feel confident in. Obviously, I'm going to tell you that it's not a year to do a lot of great things ahead. It's obviously that, but it's a huge year to heal. A pandemic that has been living with us for over a year needs at least a year to sort of go away and help us heal, over the long run. And then understand that presidents who get elected this year shouldn't make promises. They should keep them. They should keep the promises that have happened before, because it's going to be a difficult task to actually make incomplete ones to achieve as of now. So make an informed decision, go out there, make sure you have an international student as a president. That really goes a long way, makes a difference, gives you a perspective that is more than just about the UK. So if it's not me, it could be anyone else who's an international student. Just have an international student out there who's representing you and making a difference on behalf of you. And don't forget that you're all a part of the Students' Union. I think that's about it.
Okay,
thank you so
much.
That's
everything that we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of the campaign. Catch you later. So that was Rahul there, and apologies for any of you who may have had a slight connection issue. Of course, all of our candidates tonight are tuning in live remotely from their bedrooms, some of them the world over, and so please do be as patient as possible with everyone as we try to navigate remote online question times. But let's move on, and our next candidate is Riyadh. I think we may just have some slight technical difficulties connecting with Riyadh. So in the meantime, for any of you who have just joined us, thank you so much for tuning in. This is UWSU Question Time Night 3. And for any of you who do need to catch up on what you may have missed so far this week, we've had the elections for VP Education, for VP Welfare, for VP Activities, and of course both postgraduate and undergraduate education. You can find all the info on uwsu.com/elections. So let's try that again, and hopefully Riyadh is with us. Oh no, sorry, we're going to skip ahead if we may. So our next candidate is going to be Taja.
Hello.
Hi, Taja. Apologies for the slight mix-up with order. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it, especially coming a little bit early. So let's start. If I could please ask you to introduce yourself and explain to us what your #1 priority would be as president, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Taja Small. I'm 18, I'm a first-year student. I study international marketing with Chinese. And my first priority would be, I don't want to sound cliche, but genuinely the people, the students, helping them get opportunities, work experience. That's something that naturally I've always been very passionate about. From before I started uni, I was hiring uni students for work experience because I was like, I'm just very passionate about uni students getting into work, getting the most they can out of university. And then also another thing I'm passionate about genuinely is the well-being of students and mental health. I think that's something I've met a lot of students recently who have been struggling with it. I know the times that we're in, it's easy to fall into certain, well-being issues, and there's a lot going on. So I think my #1 thing is the students, their well-being, and then also making sure they have work experience and opportunities. So, yeah.
Okay, lovely. So you've spoken there about employability, about mental health, particularly, and well-being more broadly. But in your manifesto, you speak about making a long-lasting, impact on the university. So what other things do you think are the main concerns for students right now, other than employability, other than well-being? What do you think are the big concerns?
Okay, well, speaking from personal experience, #1, obviously, tuition fees. I'm not going to come up here and lie to you and say I'm going to make it for free. Let's be honest. But I will try and get that voice across. I'll be that voice. #2, I think lessons, and I am speaking from personal experience and friends. I have been a student rep, so I've kind of been able to understand what are the issues and stuff within school. I think the lessons, I'm not going to say they're boring. I think our teachers are amazing. I think we all know we come from a great university with great teachers. However, everything's online and it can be a little bit disheartening sometimes when you're hearing the same things week after week. It's online, you're at home, there's a lot of distractions. So kind of one thing I want to do is change that. I have quite big plans to get a lot of guest speakers in, but for me, a guest speaker isn't just somebody who works in a company and is in a high spot. They can talk to us, but they'll tell us the same thing that everyone else has told us. I want to get people who we can genuinely relate to, people who can genuinely tell us something so valuable, influencers that people are actually familiar with and stuff like that. So definitely lessen interactivity and engagement. That's one thing. And also international opportunities. I've realized, because I personally want to go on an international I want to study abroad in my next year. And I've realized it's not that easy for everyone to do it. I think some people, there's only limited spots available. Some people are genuinely not sure. And I kind of want to make more of those available. And if you're thinking, how can she do that? Like, I can. I do want to make a lot of partnerships with the uni. Also well-being and health, stuff like that. I like making partnerships. It's what I do out of uni. I do marketing, I do PR and stuff like that. So I like making partnerships. So I like to get partnerships with companies abroad so that people can have those opportunities.
I'll tell you what, Taja, we can come on to this maybe a little bit later, but I'm really keen to dig a little bit more into the point around money. So you mentioned tuition fees there, for instance, and the sort of university's financial position is relatively positive from what I understand, not furloughing too many staff, trying not to use too much government money if it can be avoided. But one of the challenges for Westminster is that there's a very large base of international students. And with Brexit and so on, with current restrictions due to COVID, etc., the university, of course, will be quite anxious about the short and medium term financial position. So if they were to offer a tuition fee refund, they will have to cut from elsewhere. What do you think the university should cut in order to afford a tuition fee rebate?
I think there's a lot of things they could cut for. Whether it be, I'm just going to be honest, the University of Westminster and other universities everywhere will hold certain gatherings or speeches or societies that, as students, not many people are interested in, but to a teacher, it feels like, let's put this in, let's put a budget to get this person to visit us, to get this. But I think certain things need to just be reevaluated. I think also certain things on campus, we're not on campus right now. We have to kind of look what is being spent there, what can be moved. I 100% think that tuition fees for international students need to go down. I think it's unfair because, I mean, they're online just like anyone else is, but they're international and they're paying more. And then I also think it should be moved from just things that we're not using right now that we would. So like I said, things that the uni will put on, I don't want to make anything too direct, like guest speakers, societies, certain trips. And I think those are amazing. And I do want to incorporate more of those. But I think it needs to come from a mind of a student where there's certain things the uni will be spending on that as a teacher, they think is great. As students, we don't. So what can I just look into? I will look into this in more detail. I will take the opinions of other students on what do they think needs to be cut down here and there, and then get it moved around. So that's what I can say there.
Okay, let's move on. So as president, you would be sitting on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the university. What would you do to champion liberation as part of the EDI committee?
Oh, wow, good question. Definitely, I think one thing genuinely that we need to do, I think every uni and other institutions are good at welcoming different types of people, getting societies for people. But one thing I think we don't do is mixing those people and integrating them. So, for example, I've seen the Islamic society, LGBT society, other societies and stuff. How can we get them integrated more into the uni? How can we integrate them with each other? Because I think that's one thing that's important. Education, we do a lot of lectures about our class. Can we integrate more of those and add more where we're actually having speakers that are not necessarily about our industry? So I study marketing. If we had a speaker that would not necessarily be about marketing, but would be teaching us about inclusion, liberation in the workspace, I think that's very, very important. And to get people integrated. So it's not just one society for, I don't know, Christian society or LGBT society, but there'll be something that gets everybody together. So I know I'm just seeing comments. Can I speak to the comments? Just checking. Am I allowed to kind of reply?
I'm afraid I don't have the comments in front of me, so I'll leave you to do that after the after.
Okay,
the
sure. Okay, I'll stop there then. I'll stop there.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Lo, let's move on and think about another aspect of sort of the committee life of presidents, because the president will also be the chair of the board of trustees for the union. So you will be responsible for the board, which consists of, if I understand correctly, students as well as officers, as well as external trustees who are brought on for their skills and experience elsewhere. What would you do in the situation that one of the external trustees disagrees completely with one of the officer trustees? How would you negotiate that as chair of the meeting?
Well, you see this a lot in the business world also. Different partners will disagree with different terms. And that's not a problem at all. I think it's better when people disagree because it's not that I like people to disagree, but I think it raises different points. So if I come with an idea or somebody else comes with an idea, an internal associate, and somebody else doesn't like it, they're going to raise points as to why. It will be taken so that everybody gets a chance to speak. But at the same time, whatever you do, not everybody's going to like it. Nobody can step forward and say, I'm going to do something that everybody wants, because everybody has a different opinion. Everybody wants different things, but incorporating different parts of what everybody wants, I think that's what's important. I can't do exactly what person A wants, exactly what person B wants, but if we put them together, we make sure they both have parts. If I say to one of them, what's the most important thing to you, and the other, what is the most important thing to you, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. You're going to have to cut out some things. We're going to put them together. We're going to trial it. We'll give it a little bit of a trial time. If it doesn't work, we change it. I think there's no harm in going forward with an idea for a time. We will try it for a little bit, and if it doesn't work, we change it. But I'm all for giving it a go, giving it a risk.
We're running slightly low on time, so I'm going to move on if that's okay. Sorry to cut you off.
Speak a lot.
The last question that we have is from the audience. This may be the one that you were looking at. If so, apologies. But I've got here, you said about bringing people together from different liberation groups.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you going to ensure that those liberation groups feel represented and that their voice is shared with the university? How would you voice, these diverse experiences?
Definitely. Look, I can't speak individually for each of these groups and say, well, I know what they want. I don't, not for everyone. But what I would do is listen to everybody. What do you want? How do you feel like you're going to be included? What to you would make you feel included in this school and have a voice? All I can do is speak to these groups. Personally, I'm very, very open. If you know a bit about my background, I'm personally Christian. Half of my family are Muslim. I just have friends from every different walk of life. I love every person, and I'm just going to say this one thing. I don't know what everyone wants, but I'm willing to listen to what everyone wants. I'm willing to include everyone's voice. So if I speak to different groups, and we can speak all as one, different representatives of different groups, and say, how do you feel like you would be included? What do you need to do to get your voice heard? Those things there, just listening to what the people want, that's the forefront. That's the most I can do. That's it, to be honest. Listening to everyone, asking, discussing with them. Tell me what you want.
In that case, Kawthar, that's all that we have time for. But before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to say to everyone who's watching at home about why they should vote for you to be the next president, please?
I would say, number one, many people don't know me. I'm in my first year. I haven't met many people, let's be honest. It's lockdown. We don't get to go into the actual campus, but I would say I am passionate. I'm passionate. I listen to all types of people, and I'm willing to make a change. I'm willing to take risks. And that's one thing I think is so important. I'm willing to take risks. Whether somebody else doesn't get elected as president, I still want to hear from them because they had ideas. So it's things like that. If you put me forward, you're putting your own voice forward, but at the same time, you're putting someone forward who's willing to challenge people, challenge ideas, challenge the institution itself, and try something new. That's one thing I really want to do. So that's what I'll say.
Okay. Taja, thank you so much for being with us
tonight. It's
been great chatting to you, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you, Alex.
So unfortunately, we're still trying to get Riyadh on board, so we're having a slight shuffle in our order. As I've said before, please do bear with all of the candidates as we're trying to negotiate any technical challenges. But I'm getting the nudge saying that our next candidate is ready to go, and so please do join me in welcoming Tom.
All right, Alex, how's it going? It's happy to be here.
Very well, thank you for joining us, Tom. Straight from the off, let's. Sorry, say again. We may have had a technical glitch. I'll tell you what. Let's move straight into the first question. Okay, there's a bit of a lag. We'll bear with you. That's fine. First up, Tom, would you please introduce yourself and tell everyone what your #1 priority for your year as president would be, please?
Yeah, I'm Tom Metcalf. I live in Harrow. I've lived in Harrow Halls for the past 3 years now. I'm in my second year of finance. I've championed the rent strike movement here at Harrow with the rest of the student body. That was rather successful in improving the conditions for people living on site. I understand there's a big cohort of people living at home, even more so this year. You might be in one of the London boroughs, and my heart goes out to you. Obviously, you won't be getting the full experience. My main goal as the president would be to oversee and return all of the functions of the student union that we may have lost or put on hold. As I said, it's my 3rd year here at Westminster. I did computer science for a year, and now I'm on 2nd year of finance. So I've experienced 2 different colleges within the school, and it's been sad to see so many facilities fade away this year.
Okay, Tom, so let's pick up on what you were saying about the rent strike, because I imagine any university colleagues watching may be slightly anxious about the prospect of a future president with this sort of readiness for student activism. So I'm interested to know, how would you negotiate the relationship between the university and the students' union? Because there will be a need to obviously hold them to accountable and champion students' best interests, but of course you will also need to ensure that there is a productive relationship about areas of collaborative working. So how would you negotiate that relationship?
So obviously there's a lot of stakeholders in the relationship, there being students and the faculty. The problem is obviously that sometimes it's a very them and us mentality. And if I was to be successful in running for president of the student union, and I would say there's some senior members of staff that might have something to worry about, because I'm not one of those people to just take it sitting down or take it lightly. I feel like if there's an injustice that I can see, I've got to act upon it, and that goes for every single aspect of life.
Okay, Tom, and talking about this, in your manifesto, you say that you're going to walk towards a fairer, more equal experience for all. So, and you've spoken about a couple of things already, but what for you do you think are the real main areas of inequality for students at Westminster?
So obviously, equality is a very important thing because everybody comes here, they need to feel included in the process overall. I feel like a lot of it is simply awareness. It's a very international community here at Westminster, and I think everybody thrives on that ability to communicate with such far corners of the globe. The problem is simply, I think, availability of information, availability of opportunities to all ethnicities and sexual orientations has been stifled here at the university, sometimes with sort of not very fair hiring practices, be that within the SU or otherwise. And I would look to uproot all of that within the SU.
Okay, in that case, Tom, can you talk about a bit more about these sort of opportunities? Is it purely sort of HR and work-related, employability opportunities that you're focusing on here, or what other opportunities do you think that students are missing out on?
Well, I mean, I would play very heavily upon that one. When I was first here, I'm from Newcastle, and it's a very deprived region in the UK, obviously. So when you come here, you have to work and stuff. I had the opportunity to work in the student union bar at Harrow, the Undercroft, and that really gave me a great footing in the university. It helped me meet a lot of people in the community, and I think the importance of on-site employment opportunities for students cannot be understated. I remember last year and the years previous, there's a store in Harrow that's run entirely by students, and as I mentioned again, there's the bar facility, the Undercroft. Student employment on site is really important, and I think it's a very important thing to get involvement in the SU. The fans program is very successful. That's an element of it that's been successful in the past. I'd like to build and develop that very much. I feel like a school or collegiate representative program in addition to the course representative program would be very beneficial to the university family as a whole.
Okay. Great, thank you. So let's move on. We've spoken already to several candidates who have advocated for either full or partial fee refunds this year. Do you think that students deserve a refund of any description for their year whilst learning remotely? And if so, how would you approach that?
University is a very expensive thing in the United Kingdom simply because of the structure of which is developed in the past 10, 15 years. Successive governments have made it more expensive, but then if you're a home fees student, it's hard to complain because the money is readily available to you from the state. The problem with it is I've been at Westminster now, this is my third year here. Every year, even I've loved this year, but every year I've absolutely loved it. And I understand as a finance major that those processes and those facilities available, that the bottom line is that they need to be paid for. The rent strike, I advocated for the rent strike, and I didn't advocate for a tuition fee strike simply because I understand that the facilities and the mechanism that runs at the minute runs because of the money that has been available to it for years. I feel like to push for a tuition fee reduction, potentially for this year it would be a fair case, but to push for one thereafter might hinder the experience to future students, and I would worry that would be the case.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Now, you've talked about some sort of context with previous governments and how that's influenced higher education reforms. Could you explain to everyone watching at home your understanding of the government's recent announcements regarding free speech on campus and the changes that it wants to create around free speech?
Can't say I'm aware of that news.
No? That's fine. In that case, Tom, the government has announced so far that they plan to appoint a free speech champion for universities, and they want all universities, in order to be able to have their students access student loans, so that's pretty essential, they would need to commit to freedom of speech on campus. And for students, unions looking after students' best interests, representing their views, etc., it can become quite challenging when we start to think about controversial speakers. So what's your view then on free speech? What would your view be as president?
Freedom of speech is a cornerstone of our society. I feel like it should be protected at every single corner. And the people who come here from around the world, notably people who come from East Asia, they would relish the ability to speak freely. More so, I mean, I believe residents of the UK may take it for granted. And obviously there is the opportunity to offend and insult with freedom of speech. However, I feel like on an individual scale, that can't be overlooked. It can identify, you get a better view of the people you're around if everybody has the ability to speak and determine what they want to say freely. And I believe freedom of speech should be protected. However, you should not have freedom to just insult and antagonize.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I want to talk about Academic Council, because the president will be a full member of Academic Council. So what would you do in the situation that you felt the voices of students weren't being heard as a member of Academic Council? What would you do?
I would try and understand the views of the students that weren't being portrayed, and then I would try and use my direct lines of communication with the university to try and portray the issue of the poor communication and to try and resolve that directly with them. And then if not, I mean, I've proven in the past that sometimes direct action is the only way to go. And obviously with the might of the University of Westminster Student Union behind me, that could assist further in that. You have to understand that one student's issue is not as impactful to the university's structure as a collective, and as a collective we are strong. And that would be my response.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And the last question that I've got for you, I think this was submitted from the audience, if I'm right. They ask, how will you support EDI and liberation groups whilst at Westminster?
What's EDI, please?
Sorry, equality, diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, so that is one of my big things. I feel like nobody should have a core, that nobody's experience at the core should be different based on a characteristic that they cannot choose, their ethnicity or their sexual orientation. I feel like university should be a playground for everybody. Everybody should feel free and willing and like comfortable to take part in proceedings here. There should be no group ostracized simply for being a member of that group. I think that's just at its core, it's unjust.
And if I could push you just a little bit further, we're running slightly low on time, but in concrete terms, what would you introduce to make the university a more inclusive place? So
I think we could revise the university's equality chart and try and make the procedures therein more robust, and then try and build upon, because there's a foundation and a framework already in place that's been in place that I assume will have helped some people. It might not have gone far enough for others, but I would definitely look to build on and make the frameworks that exist more robust.
Okay, Tom, that's lovely. Thank you. In that case, that's all of the questions that I have for you. But before you go, is there anything that you'd like to say to everyone watching at home about why they should vote for you as president?
Obviously, vote for me. I've got a lot of experience here at the university. I'm a well-known face at Harrow. But even if you're not going to vote for me, just ensure that you vote. Tell everybody that you know at the university to get out and vote. A democratic election is something fun to take part in, especially university. You can vote online, you can vote from the comfort of your own bed. I know many of us wouldn't have left our own beds for many days. But yeah, no, that's all from me. Thank you very much for letting me take part in this proceeding. Have a great evening, Alex.
Okay, Tom. Have a very enjoyable rest of the campaign. Good luck with everything, and thanks for joining us. See you later. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and just a reminder that if you would like to join the conversation, then please do leave any questions for our candidates on either the Facebook or the YouTube live streams, and we will do our very best to get to as many audience questions as we can. Up next, we have Yasmin ready to join us.
Hi.
Hi, Yasmin. Thank you for joining us today. Our first question for all the candidates is to please introduce yourself, and if you could just explain to us what would your #1 priority be as president next year?
Okay, hi, I'm Yasmin. I'm a third-year English literature and history student, and the most important thing to me in my entire manifesto is representation. I've been a course rep and a school rep for the past 2 years, and I am currently a school rep now. And I've seen the same issues appearing over and over again throughout my stay at university. And I think that students need to be in these spaces and need to be represented, because it's tiring enough to have the same issues coming up over and over again without having new issues come up. So that would be my main point.
Okay, thank you. And if we follow this a little bit further, obviously there are thousands of students at Westminster spread across different campuses, of course, so you won't be able to talk to everyone. But what would you do to ensure that you are representing the full breadth of student opinion?
So what I think the university is doing amazingly now is utilising the course reps and the school reps. I think that we should also have a platform for normal everyday students that haven't decided to join these courses, to have a platform to speak about their experiences and what they think they can change about the university. This could be used like in forums and have these voices at a university level. Because at the end of the day, we aren't going to know absolutely everything that is wrong or everything that can be changed about the university. But if these students are given the opportunity to exercise their right to represent themselves, we can be stronger together.
Okay, thank you. And thinking about tuition fees, which of course is possibly the #1 issue on a lot of students' minds right now. I was wondering if you could explain some of the methods that you plan to use in order to secure a tuition fee reimbursement for students when both the government and the university have flat out, said no.
As a student myself, I understand the frustration behind them completely saying no. But as a president, I would associate and collaborate with SUs in a national scale to put our voices together, to put voices of every university student internationally and nationally to come together to lobby the government and lobby our vice chancellors and our presidents to express why we should have our refunds and why we should be financially supported. Because I know that they said no, just flat out no, but when have our voices ever been completely rejected? It's never happened in history. So.
And so if I can just push you a little bit further then on that case, what would you do in order to sort of keep the pressure up on the university and government on tuition fees?
The most powerful thing we have is lobbying. I would lobby at every meeting. It would be at the top of my agenda. And granted that this is not possible for the year that the president has, while we are lobbying for these refunds, for these financial relief for students, we can offer services that help students financially. So there are amazing opportunities and support systems with the university, but it isn't inclusive for every student. So whilst the president and everyone is lobbying the university and lobbying the government, we can offer these fallbacks for students that won't be there for when these issues are resolved.
Okay, so if we follow this a little bit further, you've spoken about sort of financial support and additional sort of forms of support for students. And you've also mentioned that you'd like to help students with financial difficulty, specifically during COVID. So what would you do to expand on the support that's already being given to students? What would you do that's new or improved?
To make it more inclusive, the lovely work Libaba has done in offering this new COVID relief funding, I'd make sure that students who haven't taken out student finance loans have the ability to take out these financial supports. And I'd put in a system where you don't have to pay it back, where, like the university's COVID relief fundraising, we'd have systems like that where we'd get fundraising to offer students who don't have the support systems most of us do at home, where they don't come from safe backgrounds and safe family lives, to have these financial pushes so they have the same opportunities as everybody else.
Okay, Yasmin, thank you. I'd like to move on to talk about your role, your potential future role as chair of the Board of Trustees. Now, I asked another candidate earlier, what would you do in the event that two trustees completely disagree with one another on an issue? One is an officer from your team, one's an external trustee who's been appointed for their skills and expertise. What would you do in the context of a Board of Trustees meeting if they're completely at loggerheads with one another?
They undeniably have points of interest that differ to each other, but there will be room for compromise. So we will have issues that they deem incredibly important and issues that other person deems incredibly important, and see, okay, where are the crossovers? Where can we reach an agreement that would suit everybody? Because to be realistic, not everyone will have everything their way. Not everybody will have their points addressed, but there is room for everybody to come out of it relatively happy, to have their voice heard, to have what they deem important to themselves heard.
Okay, thank you. And thinking a bit more about the sort of internal culture of the union as its own sort of independent organisation, can you share with us what's your understanding of the union's core values?
To be honest with you, I wasn't able to find where the core values were, and I think this links so well with one of my other points of communication, and to have a space where students can easily access things like this. So
okay, well, Yasmin, I appreciate that I'm putting you on the spot a little bit there. For anyone tuning in from home, you can find about the union's core values by going to uwsu.com/about-us/r-values. And Yasmin, the 5 values are bold, inclusive, sustainable, empowering, and open. So as future president, you will be really leading the strategy of the union. And what would you do to incorporate those values in your work? So they were bold, inclusive, sustainable, empowering, and open. How would you embed that in your work as president? Okay,
so to make it, let's start with sustainable. This presidential role is like carrying a baton from one president to the next president. And I think in order to make it incredibly bold and empowering, everybody needs to be represented. Everybody has to have a platform, and everyone has to feel like it's a safe space for them to voice their opinions. So I'd go about it by making it a completely safe space, regardless of what you identify as, where you come from, who you are. You have a voice. We all have a voice, and our voices need to be heard. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. And thinking about representation and student voice and these sorts of things, what are your plans on supporting and representing liberation at Westminster? How would you represent the voices of a very diverse student community?
So as the president, I would work extremely closely with the new role, the Liberation Officer. So we'd work together in order to come up with an amazing plan to support absolutely everybody. So I feel like that's where this role as a Liberation Officer comes into play.
Okay, and if we just go a little bit further along these lines, are there any particular liberation issues that you're aware of at the moment that you would really like to champion in your year as president?
I think a lot of issues have to do with like the BAME community. As a candidate myself, there was these unfortunate racist comments left on one of my campaign posts, and I think people of color and people from BAME backgrounds need to be in these spaces. They need to be represented. There needs to be a discussion about the ignorance and about the miscommunication and misinformation that's surrounding these communities. So yeah.
Thank you, Yasmin. I appreciate being so open with us, and I'm sorry to hear about that. In that case, that's everything that I have on my list of questions. But we've got another minute or so. So, is there anything that we haven't yet spoken about that you'd like to share with people at home about why they should vote for you to be the next president?
I'd say to picture myself, you should vote for me because your voice is the most important thing that you have. And as a person that comes from two different backgrounds, as a person of color, as a woman, and as a Muslim, I understand how frustrating it can be to not have your voice heard. And I think that together, with our voices combined, we can do so much in the year that the president has. My Instagram is Yas4President, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Okay, Yasmin. Well, it's been great to share these last 10 minutes or so with you. Thank you for coming once again, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank
See you later. Right, next up we have Zara.
Hi.
Zara, hi. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Alex?
Good. I'm great, thank you. Really excited to hear about all the fantastic things happening over at the University of Westminster Students' Union. So all of the candidates have had the same pre-prepared first question. So let's begin, if we could, with an introduction from you, please. And in particular, what would your #1 priority be in your year ahead as president, please?
Okay, so hi, my name is Zara. I'm a third-year creative writing and English literature student running for the role of UWSU president. I've previously been a Westminster delegate for the National Union of Students, and I was your Black and Asian Minority Ethnic Group Officer for 2019 to 2020. Since then, I've taken on roles such as school representative and course representative, working very closely with union policies. My #1 priority for the year would be about communication, especially when looking at diversity, mental health, employability, and access to education. It would be my priority to ensure that the student body is represented and in a safe and inclusive environment.
Thank you, Zara. And if we start then by unpacking a little bit about what you were saying about inclusion and accessibility, I'm interested, how would you go about in enhancing the employability specifically for disabled students at the university?
Okay. So first of all, it is important to acknowledge disabled students can differ from learning difficulties into anything from hidden disabilities and chronic health conditions. So my first point of order would be about accepting and understanding that to a deeper level. I would invite Access Able onto campuses to have a look at our accessibility. Also, I would look at our mitigating circumstances and reasonable adjustments and whether those policies in place are accessible to those students. In terms of employability you mentioned, I think it's important to collaborate and work with the streams that we have at the moment, including working with businesses and individuals in specific fields that would propose course collaborations.
Okay, Zara, thank you. Next up, I'm keen to sort of follow on this theme about equality. And we've obviously seen a huge rise in awareness for inclusion and equality on campus, particularly. And you mentioned as one of your points about decolonizing the curriculum, which, as I've said earlier, when we're working with thousands of academics and quite a knotty kind of university system of committees who report to subcommittees who report to committees, etc., it's quite challenging to create meaningful change, especially in just a year. So as president, what would you do to ensure that any steps you took made a meaningful impact on creating a less colonial curriculum at Westminster?
That's an amazing question. First of all, that is one of my crucial parts of my manifesto. I would first start with conversations with module leaders and heads of school about content and also the subject areas that are being taught and who are teaching these subjects. I think that's also a very crucial part because we like to see representation in what is taught in front of us. I think we need better education around race and culture overall. I think we're used to looking at education in a linear fashion. And what I would do with decolonization is the ability to have very honest conversations about what is difficult and the true history of course content. I think that's important. We have EDI groups and, equality, diversity, inclusion groups, and I would work with those groups in creating a healthy narrative about decolonization with our structures in society. I'd also like to implement rotating artists and experts that I believe would help opening those conversations about our courses and our content.
Okay, Zara, thank you. Next up, I'd like to talk briefly about the sort of national picture, because of course, closer to home, you would be representing students at Westminster, but also, of course, working with sabbatical officers throughout the country to champion the student movement more broadly. So, with that in mind, could you explain to me your understanding of what the Office for Students is, please?
So as far as I'm aware about the Office for Students and UUK is about keeping the checks and balances about what we do as a union and also what national students do, our National Union of Students do. So as far as I'm aware about our OFS would be about, it would be about lobbying and also understanding finance in terms of budget and what our student voices actually mean and how we can improve our student services through our structures.
Okay, Sarah. My understanding of the Office for Students may be slightly different. I know it. I don't know if there's anything more locally at Westminster that you may know better than me, but the Office for Students that I was talking about is the market regulator for higher education in England, and UUK, or Universities UK, is a representative body for all of the different universities. So that's its own sort of union of sorts. Certainly a lobbying organisation. But thinking about the Office for Students in its capacity as a market regulator, it's responsible for a whole number of things to ensure fairness and equitability for students across the board, as well as things like value for money. I'm keen to understand, though, what do you think should be the #1 priority for the market regulator for higher education in England?
That's an amazing question. I think that it would be about inclusion for me. Inclusion is a big thing, and also equity for students, because different students have different needs, and also we need to recognize that. In Westminster, we've got a high number of international student body, and also a diverse 60% of our student body is diverse in BAME. I don't like to use the term BAME because I feel like it categorizes everyone into one box, but in the way that we're talking about it, yes. I do believe that inclusion is really, really important and the key point. In terms of, you mentioned value for money. Now, that's been a very, very hot topic, especially looking at COVID and fees. My understanding of it is that as a student, I understand the implications of that and the need for value for money. But I feel like we've done such a good job in Westminster transitioning online and staying online, actually, whereas other unions have actually brought their other universities have brought their students back onto campus, which is caused catastrophic cases of COVID, unfortunately.
Okay, Sarah, thank you. Now, thinking about your manifesto again, you've mentioned that you've been a BAME officer, fan, and NUS delegate. But I'm interested, as a clearly very engaged student, how are you going to ensure that you've got a really critical perspective on sort of student needs, etc., having been so involved in the students? How do you make sure that your views are fully representative of the community at Westminster?
I think that I've been very fortunate in having these opportunities and also being very engaging in our union. So I'd like to thank RSU for that separately. In terms of the students that don't tend to engage as much, as course rep and school rep, I have been taking feedback. We have opportunities such as digital rep and sources where I can have these conversations with people who are not that engaging. My main focus would be running focus groups, continuing the work that current VPs are doing, such as Lubaba running the BAME focus groups. I think that's really, really important. Also, I want to introduce postgraduate focus groups to figure out what the crucial issues are within postgraduates as well, and working closely with other officers in implementing those.
Okay, thank you, Zara. And the last question that I have for you today, I think this is from the audience, if I'm correct. How will you work to overcome barriers to participation in student opportunities?
That's a very, very crucial part. We've definitely seen a decline in student participation. And someone who has been a BAME officer and run events myself, I have seen that there's a lack of communication, which is the key issue here, because I don't think it's about students not wanting to engage. I think it's embedded in a lot of things, including mental health support that we have. Looking at our psychoeducation, I think it's important about whether our communities do feel represented when we host these events. Also looking at employability prospects, I think that is a key issue too, when addressing events such as careers fairs and things like that. I think it needs to focus more on what students actually need and want. So that's how I would tackle it, is by having those open conversations and that communication regularly going out to students about those key issues.
Okay, Zara, thank you. That's all that we have time for today. But before you go, for the last time tonight, I think, is there anything else that you would like to say to voters at home about why they should vote you to be the next UWSU president?
Okay, so other than championing for better support for disabilities and disabled students on campus, and decolonizing the curriculum, mental health, everything from employability to international students, I've really taken a broad scope of understanding what students' needs are over the 3 years that I have been here. And I know that I have been very involved in the SU, but I've given me the opportunity to work with our liberation officers, our current VPs, and also in school council. So I believe I have a full grasp of what a president has to offer. So if you'd like to vote, please vote on the UWSU website. My name is Zara, and yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Zara, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of the campaign. Bye for now.
Bye.
And with that, everyone, we've heard from all of our candidates for tonight. But before we go, the Vice-Chancellor themselves has sent in a very special message of good luck to all the candidates. So I'll just read that out, if I may, straight from the VC. This is such a key role, and one that we work with and rely on so closely as a university. Thank you to all of you standing. It's great you are doing so, and I commend you for it. Good luck with the election, and we very much look forward to working with whoever is successful to help support our brilliant student community. So thank you to the Vice-Chancellor for sending that in. And of course, thank you at home for tuning in. If you still haven't made up your mind, all of the videos from the question times will be available. All you need to do is head on over to uwsu.com/elections, which has all of the information about the process, anything that you may have missed, and of course, where you can vote from next week. Voting will open on Monday until Thursday, and at Westminster, you use the single transferable vote system, meaning that you're able to vote for more than one candidate should you wish. It won't necessarily, you will only be voting once, but if your number one candidate isn't successful, then your vote will pass on to your number two, number three, and so on. You don't have to vote for more than one candidate unless you wish to, but it is the fairest way of making sure that your vote counts. And count it does. Your Students' Union, as I've said, is involved with the full breadth of student activity at Westminster. And it's so exciting, especially as a former president myself, to have the opportunity to be talking to some of your candidates. So for now, that's everything from us. All you need to do is head on over next week to uwsu.com/elections to cast your votes. And I hope you'll join me in thanking all of the staff who have made tonight possible and the whole election period. And of course, a very special thank you to all of the candidates who have so bravely put themselves forward for these very important roles. For now, though, thank you for watching and have a good night. Bye.
You must stay at home.
We don't need to tell you that this year has been difficult. University has been no different. Your SU has been working tirelessly to represent you and work with the university to make things a little easier. At the heart of this effort is your officer team. There are 20,000 students at the University of Westminster, and every year we ask you to pick 5 of them to represent you. They support you with everything from A to B. Over the coming weeks, we'll be asking you to vote in your new representatives. You'll be able to find out more about the candidates and why they think they're the best fit to represent you on our social media channels and website. Whether you vote or not is up to you, but this is your chance to make sure your voice is heard and the right people are given the jobs that can result in real change to your university life. Find out more at uwsu.com/elections.